Hello and welcome into the Nittany Gritty podcast brought to you by the good folks at New Amendment. I am your host, Jon Sauber, Penn State men's basketball and football beat reporter at the Center Daily Times, and I am joined by Penn State legend Tim Frazier. Tim, how's it going?
John, what's going on?
It's been a minute. It's been quite a week too. There is some moving and shaking in the Big Ten, right? There are some losses piling up for some of these teams. I think that we did not expect. Some wins piling up that, maybe there was some foreshadowing from us in last episode, right? Like, you didn't want to pat the grave, so to speak, just yet on Penn State, just because there was some upside to go on a little run, and they're doing it here. It's a weird place to be, but it's that time of year in college basketball. Things are going to get weird. And they're going to get weird for the next month, and then some team's going to win the national title, and we're all just going to go, didn't see that coming, and that'll be it. And we'll run it back next year. That's
how it goes, man. But stuff, it goes around this, and right now it's coming to March. Everybody starts beating up on each other, and guys start getting these crazy wins that you wouldn't expect, and big time players start stepping up and making names for themselves, and obviously leading us up to we can see that happening right now at Penn State as well.
Yeah, and that's a good place to take it with the X's and O's here. Penn State back-to-back wins. And since we last recorded, I believe they're 2-1. They had the loss to Maryland mixed in there, but that was one we said we thought they could have gotten, but it didn't come to fruition. And I think some people were ready to call it a season after that loss, right? Some people were ready to say that postseason hopes were gone. Now, had they lost at Illinois, they might have been, right? It might not have been postseason, or it might not have been NCAA tournament hopes gone. It might have been NIT hopes gone too. There was some blow up potential there, but to Penn State's credit, like, they turned it around, and I don't think there's a ton of sense in talking about that Maryland game at this point, just because it isn't kind of what this team is right now, which is weird because it's like we said, it's the ebbs and flows of college basketball. It goes back and forth, but a big win against an Illinois team that I think is top 25 in KenPom at home for Penn State, and then following it up with a big road win Saturday night in the barn at Minnesota, which is not a fun place to play. We've talked about it on here before, that it is not a fun place to play, and it was at 9 p.m. Eastern time, which was fun for absolutely nobody. I mean, other than me, again, the sleep schedule, I thought it was great. Let's start every game at 9 o'clock at night, and I'm thriving at that hour. But yeah, this was there's no reason to bury the lead here. This is all about Jalen Pickett right now, right? Like, he carried this team the last two games, 72 points over those two games, including putting 41 up against Illinois, when I got to tell you, man, it felt like everything he shot was going in. But the first half, he was taking these shots, and it was like, oh, yeah, he's probably got, 12 points at halftime, 14 points at halftime. You look up, it's like, oh, he's got 24. It's like, okay. Yeah. I was like, now we might be talking about something here. It was, I don't know that I've ever seen anything like that from a scoring standpoint in a Penn State uniform.
Yeah, before we even get, how we praise Pickett, because obviously this episode is going to be dedicated to him and praising him, how great he's been. He's over these last week and a half. But yes, I will be the first to say, after the loss to Maryland, I chalked it up. I thought this was it. They had lost, 3-4 games in a row. We were headed back, or they had lost 4 games in a row. We were headed back to the old Penn State. We get there so close, and then we drop the ball. And credit to coach, credit to that team for being able to bounce back for that and be able to, win 2 games in a row and keep their name right there in the mix of making the NCAA tournament. Because after that loss to Maryland, I'm sure everybody kind of chalked it up and said, hey, this season is done. Maybe we'll go to the NIT, maybe. But, let's start looking forward to the next guys coming in next year. But great players step up when the team needs them most. And that's what Pickett has done this last 2 games. The team needed him. The basketball organization needed him, for somebody to step up and be able to will his team to wins. And he did that. Like you said, the 41-point game against Illinois, then to follow it back with 32 is really, in college, is ridiculous. You haven't seen numbers like that in I don't know how long. Obviously Pickett has gotten all the acknowledgement and recognition this week about the things and the pairs that he's gotten from the numbers that he's put up. I think one of them was the only person that's ever done it was Michael Jordan and LeBron or something crazy like that, to say Pickett has done it. Yeah,
it was like the stat line he had over 2 games was, or I think it was over the 2 games. It was only done in in either the NBA or men's college basketball by LeBron and Steph Curry. And I got to tell you, man, that's some pretty good company.
Yeah, for sure. And to do that and at the magnitude that he's done it, especially when the team needed to keep his hopes alive, because this is his last year, to keep his hopes alive of making an NCAA tournament this year. To do it, man, it's phenomenal. You can't do anything but, take your hat off to that guy as well, because he led his team. And, I don't want to say it was all about him, but he did a lot. But those other guys played well as well. I want to continue to give credit to Lundy. Like you said it in a couple weeks ago, he's been the most consistent throughout this whole season. And he was consistent again these last 2 games.
Yeah, and I think, that's a good leaping off point, because, I said we probably won't talk about the Maryland game, but I think there is some stuff that maybe we should touch on here, because it led into the other stuff. Right. It kind of, there were moments in that game where you kind of saw like, okay, this is where it turns, and this is what they're going to do to make it turn. Pickett playing incredibly well is obviously very helpful, and we can talk more about him later, and everything he's accomplished, because it's been a lot. But Kanye Clary really stepped up in that Maryland game. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he, as a freshman guard, that's not easy, as you've told us in the past. It is not an easy thing to do, right? He is a generous 5'11", I believe, in the roster. He is, that's not necessarily the size built for Big Ten play, but he's strong for his size. But he brings something that no one on the team has. We've talked about it before too, but the speed right off the drip with a quick first step, the ability to get to the rim. But he wasn't finishing earlier in the season. And it doesn't matter if you get to the rim, if you're putting a shot up and missing. He was not missing over the last couple of games, right? Over the last 3 games, really. That Maryland game was the first time that he started getting to the rim and finishing through contact. He got to the free throw line a little bit. That's been the case the last 3 games. That's another discussion that we're going to have, because we are seeing fouls called that we haven't seen called all year, and especially for Pickett. But Clary was drawing those fouls. He was getting to the rim. He was finishing. And that pressure he puts on the rim, the beauty and the pain, I guess, of Jalen Pickett is that he's not a traditional guard in any sense, right? Like, he's not going to do what you were able to do and just beat guys off the bounce and get to the rim. He can do that, and he does it with more unorthodox dribble moves, unorthodox movements rather than speed. But he'll back guys down and get you to the rim that way. But with Clary, he puts pressure on the rim with speed, right? He can blow by guys. You see Pickett get a matchup that you would think he would really like someone like Stephen Crowell from Wisconsin, or even Zach Edey, right? Yep. But he doesn't have the speed to necessarily blow by those guys. Clary has that speed. And when you can put pressure on the rim like that, it opens everything else up. It allowed Pickett to take shots off the catch. It allowed Andrew Funk and Seth Lundy to get into a rhythm. And it just kind of opened up the court offensively, because for as much maligned as their defense has been and was during the losing streak, and that was a major part of the problem, they were also not playing offensively like they had prior to that this season, right? Like, you saw the defense was just as bad, but the offense was not just as good. And so while the defense was bad, there was reason to believe that the offense would be the thing that would improve and get them back to where they were. And that's what happened. And I think a lot of that is Clary and that ability to get to the rim.
Yeah, I'm glad you say that, because, I noticed that as well, him stepping up these last couple of games, as far as he's not putting the 41 up on the 30 points or anything like that, but he is impacting the game, little by little. I think he was double figures in 2 of those games as far as points go. And, you need that, especially like you said, when the team was in the dumps and was rolling down, in a negative way. This guy was able to step up and kind of bring some positiveness to the team, as far as, somebody else stepping up and playing. And that kind of rolled in, and it's a trickle effect. That kind of rolled over into other guys. And I'm sure, they had some tough practices leading up to the Illinois game. And to feel that, they had beat Illinois before, it was obviously something else that was, a positive influence in their mindset, knowing that, hey, we went to Illinois and beat them already. So, hey, we can beat this team again. Let's go ahead and take care of business. So I think him stepping up as well, obviously Pickett playing it tremendously well, Lundy being consistent as he has, and as you mentioned just a moment ago, is about that sometimes the defense isn't always there, but the offense is always, the offense has to be there. And for this team to continue to win, that offense has to be there, and it's been there the last couple of games. If it's not Pickett and these other guys and making shots as well, so they have the recipe to win for this season. They've had great wins, big wins at that, and they've had some bad losses. So you know what the recipe is, and you know what you not to put in your meal. Hey, this time I put salt, pepper, and it didn't work. How about this time I'm gonna put something different, and ketchup or mustard or whatever you want to call it on a burger. I don't know. But you got to go. You figure out what tastes good and what works for you, and stick to that.
Yeah, and I think it's funny you mentioned the hard practices thing, because it actually guys talked about, yes, the practices were hard, but they were good, right? Like they were competitive. They weren't, like just running sprints for no reason or whatever. But Pickett talked about after the Illinois game, he said that between Maryland and Illinois, they kind of got back to showing good clips of film, right? And being more positive and being more encouraging. And I think it was after the Illinois game, I had asked Micah about this, like why make that change? Like what was the decision? And he even said, and I give him a lot of credit for this because, listen, it's his second year as a D1 head coach. It's not easy. It's a tough transition. He called it a learning, like he's always learning, right? Always figuring things out, always learning his guys better. And he said that part of it was that it was something they respond to more. They're a veteran team. They don't necessarily need to be told like, hey, you're not like they know, right? Like they kind of get it that they're not necessarily playing well or something's going wrong. And so they were able to be more positive. And he mentioned too, that part of that is the players were just acting more positively, right? So it was easier to show them positive things and they build off of it. So I do think like younger guys on the team, maybe it's a little more like you have to point out what's going on. But with this group, like they know they're messing up. Sometimes you got to teach them how to fix it or encourage them to do something they weren't doing or encouraging them to go back to doing something that they were previously. But I think a big part of it is just like trusting that they're going to fix it. And I know that can be hard, right? Because a head coach, you don't get to take the shots. You don't get to make the passes. So you just got to trust your guys sometimes. And I think Micah, to his credit, is trusting those guys. He's trusting Pickett. He's trusting Lundy. He's trusting Funk. There was a moment, too, in that Wisconsin game, I don't know if we brought it up on here or not, but where Andrew Funk was, like, visibly, like, frustrated. Like, that is the most even-keeled kid on the planet, right? Like, he does not get frustrated. And near the end of that game, he, like, had his hands up in the air and was being demonstrative about, like, with his frustrations. And I asked him about that last Monday, and he was like, yeah, he's got to be, like, he admitted he had to be better, right? Like, these guys know. They're self-aware. They know what's going on. They know what they're doing. They know how they need to handle things. And listen, we talk about not wanting to peak too early. Losing 4 in a row in February is not great. I'm not going to pretend it is, but it's also definitely not peaking too early, right? Like that is very much not hitting your stride before you need to. And I think the hope for Penn State now is that they are hitting their stride, right? And that this is turning into the next thing. And the next thing, and we can move on to the scouting report here, is important and as important as it gets, because they have to beat Ohio State, and then they have to beat Rutgers, and then you just got to find a way to split the last two. And then that magic number that we talk about all season, being 500 in Big Ten, it's right there, right? Like it's 3-1. That's all it is. It's winning your home games and beating an Ohio State game that I think reeling would be an understatement. It is just kind of a train wreck over there in Columbus right now. It's bad, and that the team kind of looks like it's given up, which, I mean, listen, when you keep losing the way they have, I get it, right? Like I'm not going to sit here and say that I would be the one pushing through that. You may push through it, but you are a better man than I. I would be the one that was down in the dumps, be like, all right, let's chalk it up to next season. But yeah, these next few now mean everything to this team.
Yeah, they're huge, and we said it before the Maryland game. Hey, we have to start. We have to get on a winning streak, and you said, I thought they had a chance to go get Maryland. You pretty much knew that wasn't going to work. But I think now it's all about winning as many games as possible. And like you said, splitting that last two. But, for me, just knowing how much the Penn State basketball name means in the committee, I say you go win both. You have to sit in your mindset. I honestly believe you sit in your mindset and you say, hey, we need to win these next two for sure. And then after that, we sit down again and we focus on that. We win the last two. I think we set ourselves up for, a higher availability to not fall out. Because, as right now, they've been in the next 4 in, first 4 out, they've been like around that for the last month or so or 2 months. And right now, I wouldn't give them a chance. I believe that, hey, they need to win these next 4 games. And then if you win these next 4 games, like you said, it's all about how you're trending. And right now you're trending with 6 wins in a row. And I think as a committee to watch that and see that, I think that speaks volumes. Like these guys have won 6 games. They had lost 4 and was able to win 6 games in a row and beat 2 big, good teams, especially right now the way Northwestern is playing is crazy. So really, to beat those 2 games, beat those last two teams at the end of the season is huge. And then going into the NCAA tournament where you're not forcing yourself to say, yeah, I have to win 2 or 3 games to get in.
Yeah, and I think, the crazy thing about them, and listen, I don't think it's not like the Maryland game or Purdue where I would have gone. And to be fair, I gave them some chance against Maryland, and they were closer, and they had a shot, but it wasn't happening. Yeah. Maryland was not losing that game at home. They also destroyed Purdue at home, so that's how you know it was a bad omen for Penn State when Maryland was rolling like that at home. But yeah, if they win these last 4, there is a world where Penn State is one of the top 4 teams in the Big Ten standings. Yes. That's crazy. That is like it's a sign of how batshit crazy this season has been. Like they would be 11-9, which is fine. Like it's a good team that should make the NCAA tournament, and they could be 2nd or 3rd in the Big Ten, get a double bye in the Big Ten tournament, and have their Big Ten tournament start on Friday instead of Wednesday. Because right now it's starting on Wednesday because they don't have the tiebreaker with Wisconsin. They're tied for 10th. Wisconsin would be the 10 seed. Penn State would be the 11 seed playing Minnesota on the Wednesday of the Big Ten tournament. You win the next 4. You don't play Wednesday. You don't play Thursday. You go straight to Friday. And you go straight to the NCAA tournament, too, by the way. If they win these 4, they're in. No doubt in my mind they would be in the NCAA tournament if they win these next 4 games. But those next 4 aren't easy, as you know, as we know. Ohio State might be easy. I'm not going to lie. I joked with some people that if and this is not true, but maybe it is. And they lost to Minnesota, maybe everyone should have just been fired and they should have cleaned house because that Minnesota team is down bad right now, like down as bad as it gets. And Ohio State, listen, it ain't much better over there. So like things are shaping up for the run that we've talked about. That when I talked about, I was ready to call it a season after I think it was the Wisconsin loss, maybe. Yeah. But then you look at the schedule, it's like, maybe. Like, and you don't want to roll it out. And this is why. But that Rutgers team too, right? Rutgers coming to the BJC, that's a projected win according to Ken Palm, a projected 1-point win. But Rutgers doesn't have Mawot Mag, one of their starters the rest of the year. He tore his ACL. And, that's they don't have a ton of depth, right? So you take him out of the rotation, suddenly you're asking guys that weren't being asked to play to now play meaningful minutes, 15 to 20 minutes a night, or guys that were playing, they're asked to take on a bigger role. And they haven't, Rutgers hasn't really, I think adjusted as well as they probably would have hoped to his injury and to things going downhill. They've lost 3 of 4 with a close win over a Wisconsin team that I think at the end of the season, if we look at this, we look at Penn State's losses. The losses to Wisconsin are going to be the one that have you scratching your head because it's I think Penn State's just better than that team. Probably shouldn't have lost either of that game or either of those games, and definitely should have at least split them. But again, Ohio State and Rutgers, I'll say it now, and I'm sure this is going to be a jinx, and I apologize to everyone for jinxing this team. But I have friends who jinxed the Eagles in the Super Bowl who I will never forgive, so it's perfectly reasonable for people to never forgive me for this. But Penn State is going to win these next 2, I think. And I think they're going to be 9-9, and they were just 5-9 in the Big Ten. And again, I don't know, man. I don't remember a season like this ever. That Penn State was 5-9, and you and I, or anyone around the program was probably still have a good chance of making the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, no, you haven't seen like that, and I think a lot of it is to the credit of Penn State and their resiliency about being able to, like you said, go on this winning streak and have the ability to continue to win games and not fall in a dunce like we just spoke about in other teams about how they're kind of just trending downwards. And Penn State had that the option to do that, and they decided to we're not going to keep going down. We're going to turn this season around and start trending back upwards, and that's what they're doing right now. And a lot of it too is just how deep and crazy the Big Ten season has been this year. Guys are beating up on everybody. Like I mentioned last week or 2 weeks ago in the podcast about how I missed the powerhouses being powerhouses and top 25 teams. And I think for us, how many top 25? Maybe we have three now. At one point it was only 1.
I think the new pool just came out.
Yeah, and Indiana jumps in.
I can find that information for us here.
Yeah, please. Indiana falls in and out, and Illinois was, ranked 25 at one point, and Northwestern now is top 25. I think Rutgers snuck in there for a week as well. So it's all over the place. The teams that you don't expect to be there are there, and the teams are literally just beating up on each other. Outside of, we spoke about in Minnesota and Ohio State right now. Everybody else has seven wins in a Big Ten, and So right now, that is just a bunch of guys just beating up on each other, and they made the strong survive. And for us, we want to be the strongest, and we want to be top 4 in the Big Ten, and have those double byes when it comes to the tournament, and sneak our way. I think if they win the next 4 games, they sneak their way up into the top 25 as well, because they'll have a top 25 win against Northwestern if Northwestern continues to do what they've been doing, and a quality win over Maryland as well.
Yeah, and so for posterity's sake, Purdue is number 5 in the country. By the way, Purdue has now joined the fray and decided to get beat up on as well. I thought they were above this the entire season. They are not. They have stooped to the dregs of the conference and getting their ass kicked on occasion as well. Indiana number 17, Northwestern number 21. Northwestern, I find this very funny, on the AP Poll website. I'm assuming it's because they're not ranked that frequently. Most teams, like, you can click the team name. They don't even, you can't even click Northwestern's name because they're just usually not there. And there's no logo on the AP Poll website, which I find very funny. But Maryland is receiving votes as well. They got 14 voting points, and Illinois got 2 voting points. So listen, we talked all year that Purdue seemed like it was the only team ranked. Like, I think as it gets down to this time of the season, people are realizing, like, oh, the Big Ten's just beating up on each other. That's why there's no, like, these are good teams. They're just like, everyone's beating up on each other. And you have a bunch of, like, good but not great teams and one great team in Purdue, who also, again, is susceptible to apparently, like, I don't know when this happened, but at some point Northwestern became, like, the best home Big Ten team in the conference. Like, I don't know what happened there. Beating Purdue at home, beating Indiana at home, beating Iowa by 20 at home in a row, all 3 in a row. Oh yeah, see, I think I have to, give this shout out to, Taylor Battle. Obviously a Penn State legend, great. Was one of my older guys when I was a freshman, and kind of showed me the ropes. He is now coaching at Northwestern, and he's coaching his younger brother, Boo Boo Booey, that's at Northwestern, that's been having a great season as well. So I think for me, I had to, I know you were about to jump on, I wanted to make sure I give a shout out to them, and congrats to Taylor, how tremendous he's been doing now, and even Boo Boo as well, because he used to be at Penn State shooting in the gym all the time when we were there, and they're killing it right now. They won 5 straight. And like you said, who would have ever thought that Northwestern was a hard place to go in and win? When we were there, we were sitting there like, oh man, we're going Northwestern. Nobody was there. They maybe had a couple hundred people there. We used to always say everybody's studying and getting ready for the test. And now they've become something. It's hard to go in it, and it's hard to go in Northwestern and win. They've got the crowd behind them. They got the players playing tremendous basketball right now, and they're knocking off teams left and right. So credit to them as well. And Taylor, man, he's doing. I know he's had a big impact there, and it's awesome to see that as well, that he's doing that. But I'm still rooting for Penn State when they play against Taylor and at home against Northwestern. So we're looking forward. Or is that game at home? Oh, it's at Northwestern as well. Oh shoot, but it's at Northwestern, right? So they go into the House of Horrors and now have to deal with that too.
Yeah, but I'm still rooting for it. I think Taylor's a little bittersweet both ways. Obviously rooting for his brother and the team he's coaching for, but I know he has love for Penn State, and because it's a team that is giving him a chance to play professionally afterwards as well. And he even coached there for a year. So I know he has some ties there, and it'll be a win-win for him either way.
Yeah, and those 3 home wins are part of a 5-game winning streak for Northwestern. Like I said, apparently Welsh Ryan Arena became a house of horrors for opponents at some point. I will say, like, that Purdue game, the game was on Super Bowl Sunday, and I was trying to use anything to distract me from the Super Bowl that was about to happen. So I was just trying to watch anything else. I watched a full game of SMU Wichita State that I think went to 3 overtimes, and that finally got me across the finish line to 6:30 that night. But that Northwestern game, like, Zach Edey had gashes on his arms from getting fouled, and they were not called. Like, those calls were so, like, hey, I mean, sometimes you get the home whistle. Northwestern, that one definitely got the home whistle, but credit to them. 5 in a row is not easy in this conference, especially against 2 of the 3 ranked teams. Again, against an Iowa team yesterday that is good, ostensibly good. And like you said, Taylor, he was an assistant at Penn State for 1 year. He was going to be for 1 season under Jim Ferry, and then he was a assistant to the head coach, I believe, just before, like, he got named to Micah Shrewsbury's first staff before taking the Northwestern job, because it was an actual assistant coach job, and moving up in the world, and obviously getting the chance to coach Boo is, you don't get that opportunity much, right? Yeah. Like, I think you kind of take that chance when you can get it. But yeah, he is he is as good as it gets. You and him on playing on the same teams. I think a lot of people have really fond memories of those teams. I think they hope to have some fond memories of this team in thinking about this one in the same way. It is it's getting to that time of the year, but like there's also one guy, and I think now is the time to talk about him and the word on campus with Jalen Pickett, who is one of the best players in Penn State program history, one of the best players in the Big Ten, and the best point guard in the country, right? Like it is, I've watched him for 2 years. I think I've gotten to know Jalen pretty well. He's a big superhero movie fan. I have a full tattoo sleeve of Marvel superheroes. Yeah. So him and I have talked about that stuff. Like he's very personable. You get to know someone for 2 years, and I did not see this coming. I thought he was really good. I thought he had a chance to be an all-conference player. I did not know there was an All-American in there, but there very much is. And I think it would be not a travesty, but like it would be a disappointment if he's not an All-American at this point with how incredible he's been. We said earlier, my math was wrong. It was not 72 points. It was 73 points. Listen, I do words and not numbers for a reason. But 73 points over 2 games, with a 41-point game in there that, by the way, is not his career high. It's a career high for a regulation game, but he put up 46 against Quinnipiac a couple years ago in a triple overtime game. So he's almost put up 50 before, which is just incredible, and I think says a lot about how good he is. He won ESPN's National Player of the Week. The Big Ten Player of the Week will come out later today. I'll be pretty surprised if it's not Jalen Pickett, right? Like it would be kind of shocking if it's not him at this point. He has been incredible. Like it is, he shot 40 shots over those last 2 games and scored 73 points on them. And the biggest thing, by the way, they're calling the fouls. I mentioned this earlier. They're calling the fouls. He has shot, I think, 13 free throws over the last 2 games, which might match his season total. That's hyperbole, but like it feels like it's kind of close given how few calls he's getting. I know he shot like 50 some before that, but still, like it is a transformation from really good player to, I said this early in the season, I think I tweeted it out that like he's going to go down as one of the best. I don't know where he'll stand like historically because he's only been here 2 years, but he's one of the best players to ever play at Penn State. And I think there is an argument that we are witnessing the best season in Penn State men's basketball program history. He's incredible, right? Like it's ridiculous.
He's been phenomenal. Even if you take away the 40 points and the 30 points games, just even his worst games, he still stuffed the stat sheet. When you look at even the games that he didn't play well, he didn't shoot well, it was a 12-8-7 or 10-9-6. You know what I mean? He's always stuffed the stat sheet. And, like you said, it would be a crime if he's not an All-American because he's done it consistently throughout the whole season. And when you look at the Penn State team, if they are to make the NCAA tournament, for them to be able to make the tournament, he's the most valuable player to even get this team and will this team there. And like you said, it's a must. I don't know who he's up against, and I'm sure there's some other name. I'm sure Edey's up there as well as in the Big Ten, and there's some other high profile names. But if he doesn't, just know that he's an All-American in my eyes, and I don't know how far that goes, but, hopefully he knows that, the guys that have come before him are looking at him like, man, he's doing something phenomenal to be able to do that in Penn State and do that. Like you said, he's only been there 2 years, and the numbers he's putting up and to be able to do that stuff against Big Ten opponents is huge because we all know how tough it is to be able to do that, and he's putting up these numbers, and you can't do anything but, get this guy, a round of applause. And I know for me, I hold the Penn State single season assist record, and he's very close to breaking that, and I'm sure he's going to break that this week. So, Jalen, if you are watching this, and I'm going to make sure I tweet you and make sure you do watch this, I want to tell you, man, congratulations. What you've done is phenomenal, man. And I've heard nothing but great things about you as far as being a leader and being a man. So continue to do that, and obviously the assist, that is something that's not easy to do, but you've been doing it. You built the confidence in your teammates for them to be able to make shots, and you find them in the right spots to make them successful. And that's something that will take you a long ways, especially in your professional career, is being able to help others and being able to put them in the right position and make their life easier. So obviously, congrats to you, man. I know you're gonna break it, man. But so congrats and keep going. Make it. Now you got 4 more games, and then the conference, man, can stretch it out as long as you possible, man. Go get 50 more assists and make it untouchable. But yeah, man, again, congrats, man. You've done a tremendous job, and man, it's an honor to be able to obviously cover you throughout this podcast and to see it. That how great you've been, and I know the accolades and the trophies and everything will start rolling in after this season.
Well, yeah, and first off, there you have it, the first ever Tim Frazier All-American, Jalen Pickett. Listen, we may as well start naming them now. But no, I think you nailed it, right? He is when you start accumulating those assists, it's your teammates have to trust you to put them in the right positions because they have to. Part of it is like, especially with the way they play. Sometimes you just got to stand in the corner and know that he's going to find you, right? Yeah. There's the urge to like be active for some guys. Sometimes it is, trusting that when you come off that screen that he's going to get you the ball, so you come off the screen hard and you know what I mean. You put yourself in position. So there's such a level of trust that they have in him, that the entire team, the entire coaching staff, everyone with the program has in him. That I think put him in this position. Not to mention, by the way, like it's not the Penn State record, but his scoring total for his career is 2,054. He's not far off from being like what would be the all-time leading scorer in program history, right? Like he's not going to get it again because it's only been 2 seasons, but like had he been at Penn State for all 5 seasons, like there's reason to believe he would have gotten that too, which is crazy, right? It is. This season is something that we'll probably never see again from a college basketball player, just in general. Because, again, we talked about earlier, guys across the country don't do this. He's averaging, 18, 7, and 7, essentially, and he's doing it efficiently with scoring. Like, it's incredible.
The last person that I saw it in firsthand when I was playing in the Big Ten that was kind of around there where he just dominated the game from points, assists, and rebounds is, I hate to say it because he's a friend of mine, and I'm sure he's watching this, is Evan Turner. Evan was able to dominate games with points.
No, we don't need to do this.
You know what I mean? So and so that was the guy I was able to see do that, and then you could see their games. It might not be similar, but the way they control was back and post ups and take over games and make big shots when needed. And so Evan All-American. There's no way. That's what I believe. Pickett is the same. And I know not just myself, I can't speak for these guys, but I know the guys that have come before Pickett in Penn State uniforms, and the DJ Newbill, Lamar Stevens, Taylor Battle, and all these guys, and I know they're watching as well, and they're seeing it how he's continued to put Penn State on the map with his numbers and how he's leading his team. So I'm sure that everybody else is watching to see what else he can do and see how far he can take this team.
And I think actually Evan is a great comparison, right?
Yeah.
Like the stat stuffing part of it is, from like looking at their body of work, but also when you watch them play, right? Like Evan on some levels was unorthodox at Ohio State. He beat you with size, he beat you with strength, he beat you with those post ups, those mid range shots that you couldn't get a hand in his face. That being said, he's 3 inches taller than Jalen, right? So there's some. There was some inherent advantages that he has, and he used his height more than Pickett does. Pickett creates more space, I think, on those jumpers. Sometimes a little shoulder into the chest on the step back for Pickett, which gets him all that room he needs. Evan probably got more foul calls, I think, in his 2 years than Pickett has in his 2 years at Penn State. But yeah, I think like the comparison's a good one, right? It's that type of player, the guy that leads your team to wins, to where you want to go as a team, not just like there are plenty of guys you see will stuff numbers and put up big numbers, and then it's like, oh, well, the team went 0-6 in those games. Like, did it really help? And like with talent around them, like Evan was the kind of guy who had talent around him and elevated it with his play. And Jalen is the kind of guy that has talent around him and he elevates it, right? I always compare floor raising and ceiling raising. Floor raisers to me are guys that can get you to a certain level but can't take you further than that. Yeah. Ceiling raisers are guys who, when you have talent around them, they will elevate it beyond belief. The Draymond Green types, if you will. Yeah. And so like I think Pickett is in that group. He raises your ceiling. He makes everyone around him better. He improves your team tremendously. And like we've seen it, like the last 2 years have been 2 of the best seasons we've ever seen in Penn State men's basketball history. This season might go down as the best season ever. Like you said, he's going to break your record here soon. He is a phenomenal player, like just an unbelievable player. By the way, when he does break the record, I think this says a lot about him. it's not his career high for assists in a season. He had 221 his freshman year at Siena. Like he's been doing this, right? Yeah. Like he just was at Siena and wasn't getting, like, that's the crazy thing. Like I don't think he got the proper recognition this season from folks outside of the people paying close attention. I think the Big Ten has given him the proper attention, especially on broadcast. You hear guys really talk him up. But I don't think nationally he's gotten that kind of attention. I think he's earned it, and I think it's, you hope for the kid that he gets the attention he deserves, right? The accolades that he deserves, and like I said earlier, it couldn't happen to a better guy too. Everyone I talked to loves Jalen. I did a story on him this time last year when he told me he was probably coming back this season. I talked to his mom and his brother, who were a huge part of his life growing up, along with his grandmother. But like, I think about like his mom talking about like how much he wanted this, how kind of advanced he was for a basketball player at every age level, right? Like when he was drawing up plays before he should be drawing up plays, right? Like he was calling things out before he should be able to call them out, and like just tremendously, smart basketball player, tremendous on the court, all of the athletic gifts that he doesn't necessarily possess, right? Everyone calls him old man pick for a reason, right? Like it's just he's not that guy, right? He's not going to beat you with the speed and the flash, but he's so consistent and so good. And I think sometimes when you call someone consistent, it gets like, I don't mean like he's consistently good. I mean he's consistently excellent. Yeah. And like I said, I think fans should cherish that, because who knows when that'll come around again.
I agree.
One of the last times we saw this was like 11 years ago when you were doing it. So
no. There's been some other greats that have come in after me and even before me. I'm just happy to be a part of that.
I'm saying, but doing it this way, right? Doing it with the like, there have been great, like you mentioned, Tony is. Oh
yeah, Tony Carr. Sorry, Tony Carr for sure.
Like, all of those guys. Yeah, all of those guys are excellent, but the way he does it reminds, not the way he does it, the result reminds me of you in those ways, right? Because Tony is like one of the best scorers to ever play at Penn State, not to mention like one of the best passers to ever play at Penn State. But there was, and this is of no offense to you, there was a level of scoring that maybe you didn't possess, right? Like Tony was like getting all three levels, just firing from 35 feet, like what we always called battle range. He was doing that. And Lamar was a very different type of player, but Jalen reminds me of you in that, like, maybe there's like, I don't know, maybe it's that I don't think that you necessarily got the recognition that you probably deserved at the time. Not to gas you up, because as you know, I really hate doing that. But like, there's a similarity there, right? That you both like, maybe in 10 years, people will look back and appreciate it more and wish they had appreciated it more when it was happening.
I appreciate that. But like I said, there's been so many, and it's just been special to really watch him and to see it. And I think you said like not a lot of people have done it that way, and I think there have been a lot of great scores there. But to be able to do it with assists as well is to put others first. A lot of times, because a lot of times Pickett can take these shots, but he put others first, and that was something that's been my staple throughout my whole career, even when I was younger in middle school and high school. And I did the things that needed to be done, and just for the team to win, I didn't mind. I'd rather have gotten 20 assists than get 50 points. That was always my thing, because I just felt like, God, it's harder to get 20 assists because, it's not dependent on you, than it is to get 50 points. And that's always been my staple. And I can kind of see that in his game as well. He knows how tough it is to set others up and get it. And get the assists as well. So, credit to him again, for breaking the record, which he will do in the next couple of days. If not the next game, the game after that. So, again, he's been special. He needs the credit. He deserves the credit. And I hope the fans, like you said, cherish this, because this is something special that they're able to witness. And, because, he'll have a long professional career, I believe. And it's something that you're going to watch and see his name for a long time. And you're going to wish if you haven't seen him play in person at Penn State, you're going to wish you had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, no doubt. And just to sort of finish the discussion off, there are not a lot of guys in the country who could put up 73 in 2 games. There's one guy in the country who can put up 73 and rack up 16 assists. Right, in college basketball. Yeah. Men's college basketball, at least. Caitlin Clark can also do that in women's college basketball. She is electric.
She is.
But in men's college basketball, in men's, it's Jalen. Right.
Yeah.
Just it's incredible. But I think that's a good place to leave it. It is we've said it a million times. It's an exciting time of year. I think me being on the outside a little more like enjoyable, right? I don't feel the stress, right? I'm sure you as program legend feel like a little more stress watching these games than I do, right? Like I'm here to tell the story. I enjoy telling the story. Good stories are fun to write, but it's exciting, right? Like I love good basketball, and this is really, really good basketball, man. And I think it's going to be excellent down the stretch. But that's a good place to leave it. You can find us, as always, right here on the Nittany Gritty. You can find it anywhere you're listening to You can listen to podcasts, including wherever you're listening right now.
Beyond the Big Ten is a network of podcasts that aims to be your go-to resource for all things Big Ten. We cover the entire conference with shows hosted by ex-players and athletic alumni, aiming to be your go-to source of information and entertainment for your favorite team. Hosted by ex-Big Ten players, media, and insiders, our podcasts are focused on giving diehard fans and those alums an inside scoop about the teams and people that make the Big Ten Conference one of the most watched and most talked about conferences in sports. We're excited to talk Big Ten basketball with you wherever you may be. Subscribe now.